Hey, folks. How are you on this amazingly wonderful day? We're talking about animals, right? So, this is kind of part one of our uh, journey into the world of animals. And so, today we're going to be talking about digestion, how they get their energy. When I say they, of course, we're animals too, but I could say animals, how they get their energy and how they support themselves. When we were talking about plants, we talked about supporting themselves with roots and stems and such. And when we talked about plants getting their energy, we talked about the process called photosynthesis. Well, animals have a different process, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. But before we do, all animals need a few things to survive, and here they are. This list is very similar to the plant list. But it's a little bit different. So in the plants, we talked about nutrients, right? That's not on this list because food is where we get the vitamins and minerals and nutrients and all that kind of fun stuff. So it's not listed separately. Okay. And you also notice that I said, so it's food, air, and water, right? But really, I had to get a little specific because oxygen, I wanted to specifically go there because there are animals that don't breathe air, right? And you know what animals those are, right? The fishies and such. So they get their oxygen from the water. So I really wanted to be a little more specific to not just say food, air, and water. And I wanted to be like, oh, well, when I mean we need to get oxygen from somewhere. So that's the three things that all animals need to survive. Notice that sunlight is not on that list because some animals spend most of their lives, not, and they never see the sunlight their entire lives. Deep sea fish and other such things. So that's not on the list either. So here we go. Digestion, right? This is how we get the energy and the nutrients that we need for our body to be healthy and work the way it's supposed to. And it's a process. Notice the word process, right? Process is also a word that was associated with photosynthesis, right? Digestion is a process of breaking food into smaller pieces so the body can use it, right? And of course, here we go. It involves the stomach, which is a digestive organ, right? There's lots of organs inside the body, your liver and your lungs and your heart and all that kind of fun stuff. It's lined with muscle, and I don't like the fact that they said it contains juices. That's so really weird. But you know that there's acid inside your stomach, right? It's acid. That helps to break down the food, right? So stomach has acid. They call it juices, which I think is pretty strange. Here we go. The fun really begins in the small intestines, folks, because this is where all of the useful parts of the food, the vitamins, the minerals. Oh, I'll take that calcium. I'll take that magnesium. I'll take that zinc. I'll take that vitamin. It all comes out and it's absorbed in the small intestines. Okay. And that's where all the good stuff. So if you're eating healthy, if you're eating healthy food, then it'll have a lot to do. The small intestines will have a lot to work with. Okay, so then it comes the large intestines. The large intestines doesn't have quite as much to do because the small intestines did all that hard work. It maybe removes a little bit of water from the food and then it becomes waste, aka also known as poop. So you'll notice that the word esophagus is not up here, but I talk about the esophagus a lot, right? Because in the journey of food and digestion, it starts off with the mouth. That's where we break down the food the first time to make it easier to swallow. Unlike other animals, we don't swallow our food whole. And then the esophagus, it's below the throat. It's connected to the stomach. And the esophagus is part of the way that it travels from the mouth to the stomach, right? So it's mouth, esophagus, stomach, small intestines, large intestines, waste. Okay, that is the journey, my friends. We talked about different kinds of mouths and teeth having different purposes, right? If you have an animal with very sharp teeth, they are more than likely carnivores, and it's to bite into other animals and to tear flesh. Like a wolf is a good example of that. Cows and horses have very flat teeth, and their teeth is good for grinding plant materials because that's pretty much all they eat. There's like a million different shapes of beaks, right? If it's thick and short, it may be useful for cracking seeds and nuts. If it's long and sharp, it may be used for catching insects. But there's so many different shapes. Things that are not listed here are, let's say, a butterfly has like a mouth like a straw, and a grasshopper has like a mouth like a pair of scissors, and mosquitoes have a mouth that's very, very pointy and sharp so it can pierce through the skin and drink blood. Those are not mentioned here, but it's things that we've talked about. The circulatory system involves the heart, and I'm not going to talk a wicked lot about this because ELA talks about this a lot. The literal heart, well, maybe not a lot, but they certainly did talk about it. It's how the blood gets through the body, right? A lot of the stuff that you need that feeds your body, the nutrients and it goes through the blood. The blood carries a lot through your body. The heart, of course, is a pump. It's made out of muscle, and it moves the body, the blood throughout the body. And the arteries are the vessels that carry you away from the heart. And then you've got the veins, and then you've got you've got all those little things, right? All those little arteries and all those little veins and all that kind of stuff that's in there. It's part of the whole thing. Let's talk about the skeleton, shall we? So the skeleton is all the bones collectively that are inside. Now, why, am I specifying inside? Well, because we'll find out later. There's other kinds of things, right? When we get down to the bottom of the page, that not all skeletons are on the inside. So all the bones together that provide support, right? So we're not just a big blob on the floor. That's the skeleton. One piece of that skeleton, of course, this is not something you've heard of a bone before, right? It's a hard structure that is part of the animal's internal inside skeleton. Again, why do I say inside? Because of this bad boy down here. The muscle, right? A muscle is what helps us to move, right? So the word contracts gets brought up a lot in the readings, right? And so when you say a muscle contracts, and that just basically means like when you make a muscle and you tighten your muscle, then that's contracting, and muscles contract and relax, and that's what produces movement, right? And the muscles are on the bone. Exoskeleton, that's a type of skeleton that is on the outside. And lobsters and crabs and insects have exoskeletons. They are, and also, by the way, here's a little fun fact, they do not grow with the animal. So a lot of animals like crabs and such, they have to shed their exoskeleton, and then they grow a new one. So invertebrates are also ones, those animals that don't have backbones. What an invertebrate is, they don't have backbones. Those are the ones who many of them have exoskeletons, the outside ones. These last couple are pretty things you've definitely heard before. This should not be anything new or crazy to you. Like, for example, the scales. Now, fish are not the only animals that have scales. Some reptiles do as well. It's a flat, stiff plate that's the outside covering of the fish. They're this isn't really like a great picture because it's so small, but it's a hard, flat, stiff plate. And the fin is another one that we've heard of before. It helps them to move, it helps them to steer, it helps them to balance. The fish have them, right? And we can see all these wonderful fins, and they can be on the top, they can be on the bottom, they can be on the back. And those last couple ones are, like I said, they're kind of ones that you've heard before. And even some of these other ones before are things that you've heard before. You've heard of the skeleton, you've heard of the bone. Oh, I forgot about the joint. Oh, Mr. Brown, you skipped one. Thank goodness I went back. A joint is where two or more bones come together. And here's an X-ray of two bones that come together. And this spot right here is the joint. A couple of really well-known and famous joints in your body are your elbow, right? And your knees. So, I'm so glad that I went back because I forgot to talk about that. And I'm sure so many of you noticed, they're like, wait a minute, what happened here? He skipped it. So that's everything that's on study guide number 1. If you have any questions or anything about this study guide or any of the content on it, please come and see me and we'll talk about it. Folks, have an absolutely amazingly fantastic day, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.